Hey everybody, today we're going to start a new series, and this series is going to be the previous training classes that I've done. I'm going to put them all on YouTube. So if you like materials like this, like my channel, hit that bell for notifications because I'm going to do every one of my trainings and throw them up here on YouTube. And each training will actually have a quiz attached to it. So if you go down in the descriptions, click on that link to go to the quiz, and you can take that quiz and see how you're doing. So let's get started with today. This is what we're going to go over. This is my one-day training right here. Intro to hardware, hardware quiz, intro to CCT, connecting to controllers, wiring up VAVs, commissioning and troubleshooting lab, and troubleshooting AHU lab. So today, right now, we're going to talk about intro to controllers. So JCI FX controllers, the FX line. This happens to be the newest version out there right now of the JCI line. This is the F4 CVE 03050. The E stands for Ethernet. So as you see right here are two Ethernet jacks right there, and there's no MSTP down here. Now, if this was an MSTP one, the E would be replaced by an M. So it would be a CVM 03050. And there would be a blue connector down here for MSTP. And my FC bus and SA bus would go where these Ethernet ports are. Okay. Other than that, same form factor, same everything. They only make one version of the, well, let's say one size of the VAV controller now. Okay, this is the size. The numbers actually mean stuff now. So you take the first numbers, 0, 3, and that's how many inputs you have. Right here, we have UI1, UI2, UI3. So 3 inputs, right? The last numbers, 0, 5, is the total number of outputs you have. BO1 through BO3 is 3, and CO1 and CO2 make 5. A total of 5 outputs. Okay? These are the 3 different configurations that you can get of this controller. Again, they're all the same size. The only difference is 2 of these are MSTP. One of these has a P after the end of it right here. The P means it has a potentiometer, okay? It has a feedback positioner on there. That costs more money. So if you're doing a job with hundreds of controllers and you don't really care about the feedback, then don't get the P, get the one without the P, okay? We talked about this already. It's got 3 universal inputs. It's got 2 configurable outputs and 3 binary outputs, okay? Their inputs here can only take 0 to 10 or resistance. They cannot take 4 to 20. So if you're going to use a 4 to 20 device out there in the field, you're going to have to put a resistor on there to make that 2 to 10, okay? Search it on YouTube. Maybe I'll do a video on it, but it's pretty easy. You just put the resistor across positive and negative, and it turns that 4 to 20 signal into a 0 to 10 or a 2 to 10 signal, okay? And then you get set up your controller for that. But natively, the VAV controller does not accept 4 to 20, okay? Power source. All the Johnson controllers cannot be powered in North America from DC voltage. They all take 24 volts AC to power them up. It can go all the way down to 20 and go all the way up to 30, right? But 24 is what it's looking for. AC voltage only. So you cannot take a battery pack in there and plug it up to a controller and expect that controller to power on. Okay, it will not. Inputs, outputs, we talked about that. They all come with air pressure differential sensors on there now. You can't get it without. It's all standardized now. Now, on the VAV controllers only, BOs, BO1, BO2, and BO3 are always outputting 24 hot. So as soon as you power up this controller right here, this hot, it's going to jump over to here, here, and here. When you turn on a BO, say I'm turning on BO1, this BO common right next to 1 is going to turn on, and it's going to turn on the common here, okay? So if you have a relay, a rib relay, no problem. You just hook the rib relay right up here to BO and BO1, or BO1 and BO common. You fire it, it's going to send 24 volts out, and boom, it's going to do it. If you're doing a VAV box, you got to be careful what's being shared across the terminals in that box, okay? So the contactors, if it already has a common going to it, this common right here, it's not going to work when you fire BO1 common, okay? Then you just got two commons. That doesn't work. That doesn't make a circuit. You're going to have to rewire that to land on the hot, so you feed out the hot as, say, the common to that contactor, and that allows you to turn it on and off with the common that is going to fire out of BO1, okay? So always remember on these Johnson Controls VAV controllers, BO1, BO2, BO3, always fire out 24 hot as soon as they're powered up. This is the line of controllers now for Johnson. They've simplified it tremendously. There used to be a ton of different variants out there for each controller. Now this is what you get. This is all of them. So right here are the three different VAVs that we had. One of these has a potentiometer, one doesn't. I don't know which one is which. Probably this, because there's an extra little symbol there and there's not one there. So I'm assuming that's it. You got your 4060 is your small unitary controller. We'll go over that here in a second. And your 9090 is your larger one. In the 9090 series, you can get it with a display built into it. And these are nice displays. So, same thing as the VAVs, all these have to be powered by 24 volts AC, right? They cannot be powered by DC voltage. Also, out of the box, you see these addressing. It's no longer binary. It's got the turnstile now. Out of the box from the factory, every single one of these controllers comes addressed 999. Okay, so you have to make sure you change that hundreds place down to either a 0 or a 1, or it's not going to show up on a BACnet network. Why? Because BACnet networks, the range for masters devices on a BACnet network is 1 to 127. Now inside of CCT, Johnson limits their addressing for BACnet from 4 to 127, okay? Because Johnson uses address 1, address 2, address 3 as other devices in the field for that. We'll get into that later, but there's some devices you can use to plug into these and program them in the field, and they actually are master devices in the field. They actually have a MAC address. So that's why Johnson inside of CCT limits that from 4 to 127. Now, these in the back right here are expansion modules. We have three different sizes of expansion modules. We have the small one, the 4060. It mirrors the 4060 controller exactly. We got 4 inputs, 6 outputs, okay? The 9090 mirrors the 9090 controller. 9 inputs, 9 outputs. We'll go over that in a second. Now the 1800, that's the only one that's slightly different. We don't have an 1800 anywhere. This has 18 binary inputs. So if you're getting a lot of statuses off of a building, you could put one of these 1800s on there. You could throw one of these 1800s out there if you're getting a lot of statuses, just like fan statuses, door contact statuses, all that. So if you just have a whole bunch of statuses, 1800 will come in handy. Now, these expansion modules can be placed under the unitary controllers or the VAV controllers via the SA bus. And when you do that, they do not count as a device on your network. Actually, when you scan the JACE and these are underneath a controller, you will never see these. They never show up. All you see is extra points under that controller, okay? But all three of these expansion models can actually be backnet devices on a backnet trunk. So they're either or. You could program them to be on the SA of a controller, or you can program them to live on a trunk. Now, if they live on the trunk, there is no brain inside of them. You cannot do any programming. So basically, you are just getting points to monitor or to fire from another controller in there, like a JACE, the front end device. So if your front end device, if you're just going to fire some exhaust fans on via schedule every morning, no problem. You can throw one of these expansion modules out there because you don't need logic to fire a exhaust fan. All you could do is just hook up that schedule to that point that you created in these, and the JACE is what's doing the programming. The JACE will fire those commands, turn them on and turn them off for you. So you could save some money if you have a situation like that by using those expansion modules. Here are the inputs and outputs of each one of those controllers, the 4060 and the 9090. Now the 4060 and 9090 both can take a 4 to 20 milliamp signal. Okay, input wise, either one can take the input. So the larger one, the 9090, has 7 universal inputs. The smaller one has 3 universal inputs. Binary inputs, just dry contact or pulse counters. The larger one has 2 of those. The smaller one has 1. Now we're on to outputs. Binary outputs, the larger 9090 is 3 and the smaller one is 2. Now, look at this word right here, external power source only. So before, in the old 2611s, they had jumpers where you could move the jumper and the binary outputs would have a hot similar to what the VAVs do. Now, on the newer controllers, they do not have an option for internal power. You must jump the power over to the common of those binaries to fire them whenever you turn them on. So no more internal power for the unitary controllers, only the VAV controllers. So now we got the configurable outputs. The larger one has 4 configurables and the smaller one has 4 configurable outputs. So they both have configurable outputs. The configure outputs does not output 4 to 20. It only outputs 0 to 10 or binary or some other form, but not milliamp. Now, the larger one has 2 extra analog only outputs that can only do either 0 to 10, up to 0 to 10, or 4 to 20. So there is an option to output 4 to 20 on a JCI device, but you do have to buy the 9090 controller to make this happen. And then you got the SA bus. The SA bus supports up to 10 wired SA bus devices. Okay, expansion modules and NS series sensors. Again, 24 volts AC only. It does not allow the controllers to be powered up by DC voltage. Let's talk about the sensor types that Johnson can take natively without building any kind of custom scale. So every time you build a program in Johnson Controls, it's going to build inside CCT. It's going to build all your sensors to be nickel 1K sensors. It loves nickel 1K sensors. The other option is a platinum 1K sensor. The difference between the nickel and the platinum is about 40 degrees. So nickel is 1K at 70 degrees. Platinum is 1K at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So, and the curves are very similar. So if you're 40 degrees off, basically, then you probably have the wrong sensor type selected in CCT. You can go in CCT and possibly fix that. Now, the other sensors that it takes, a very common one right here, is the 10K Type 2 sensor. I'll show you later, we'll get into it, but inside CCT, you won't see a 10K Type 2 version. You'll see a 10K Type L version. I swear that was a mistype from a long time ago, and Johnson just kept going with it. But a 10K Type L in CCT is the 10K Type 2 sensor. Johnson also supports a 2.2K sensor, and that is all. Now, here are the newer style sensors, communicating sensors, SA bus sensors, the network sensors. These are NS8000 sensors. From the left over here, we got I call it the 300 series. It's the fancy one that has a little bit larger screen that can hold a little bit more information on it. The most common one, I would say, is this next one right here, which is the 200 series. It allows the display of the set point or display of other points. You can actually make it display whatever you want it to make on that sensor, depending on how you program CCT. The next one over does not display the temperature or the set point, but it does allow warm-cool adjust. Now, this is different from other sensors because the middle line right here will be white, and when the end user presses the up button, anything above that middle line being white will turn red to indicate it's going warmer. Anything below that middle line will turn blue to indicate it's going cooler. And then over here, you got the blank sensor, the zero series sensor, okay? Great for hallways or something like that if you want to spend the money to get the NS sensor and not just a plain Jane nickel or platinum or 10K sensor, okay? Now, out of the box, these are addressed because you can have multiple on a network. I believe you can have up to 6 of these on a network depending on the power requirements. So if you can have less of the 300s, less of the 200s, you can have more of the 100s and a whole bunch of the zeros. Now, out of the box, they're all address 199. There are 3 dip switches on the back. There you could change the addressing. Read the instruction manual inside the box that it comes in, and it will show you what the addresses are and how to change them. Each one of those, here's the numbers that respond to them, but each one of them you can get with a PIR, a motion detector, or no PIR, no motion detector. You can get with CO2 or no CO2. You can get with humidity. You can actually get two different types of humidity. You can get the standard 3% humidity, or you can get the 2% off humidity. That's a little bit tighter restriction on there. Then over here, here's where the 300, 200, 100 come into play, or the 0 right here. That's where I got those numbers from. And right here, you can get it with or without a logo. Black is discontinued. This is a little bit older. They used to come in black and white. Now all you can get is white again. So that is the end of this section. Now, if you want to take a quiz, down in the comments, there will be a link for the quiz. Go and take that and see how good you do. Remember to like and subscribe this channel so you'll get the next video that comes out. I'm going in line, so I'm going through day 1, then I'll go through day 2, then I'll go through day 3, and I'm even going to put my advanced class up on YouTube. Thanks for watching.